I'm Jason Pritchard, and this is my story. We were told not to talk about it, that this isn't something that you talk about or discuss with other people, but it is what it is, and it pays extra bills, it puts food on the table, it provides the things that the normal 9-to-5 job didn't provide. So 18 years old, I started smoking marijuana and drinking. When I was I think it was about 20 years old, I was involved in a head-on collision on a one-lane bridge, and then I spent about 2 months in the hospital and was released from the hospital and was on my way to sign some insurance papers, and a guy hits us in the rear end and breaks a bone in my neck. The injuries left me out of work. I lost my job due to the fact that I was out for a considerable amount of time. And so what I quickly learned is that I could manage my pain with some of the medication, and then I could sell other bits of it. I would be able to supplement my income that had been lost because of the trauma. It led me to a road where I learned what cocaine and methamphetamine was. People coming around, they're buying the pills, hey, want to try this? So I apply to Virginia Tech and get accepted in the finance program. I go to Virginia Tech and I'm involved in the program, but I'm still in full-blown active addiction. Once I've graduated with my finance degree, I get this really good job, work in DC for about a year, and then I'm transferred to California. And I go to California, I work for a Fortune 50 company. I'm later on transferred to Atlanta. And when I'm on my way from California to Atlanta, I go to North Carolina to see my parents. 8 o'clock in the morning, me and my dad are headed to go fishing, and a diesel truck comes around a curve and flips over and smashes us head on. So it messes up a bone in my leg, and again, I lose my job. I'm trying to figure out, like, how am I gonna pay my bills? Now I have a car payment, insurance, all this, and I'm sitting in a bar one day talking to this guy, and we had done a couple pills together before, and he asked me if I know how to move large quantities of pills and cocaine, and I said I could. I came back to Virginia and began to move large quantities of cocaine and pills, and that lasted for about 2 years, and then that's when I began to have encounters with law enforcement. First, I had a felony assault on a police officer, and then I moved into various narcotics convictions, and so now, today, I sit here as a 4-time convicted felon. I was incarcerated on 3 different occasions from March of 2012 to March of 2017. I knew something had to change. And so that's when I started reading some books that had to do with who Jesus was and who God was, and I just had this change of heart. I figured out what my purpose was, what I was created for, and it just changed my whole life. On January 2nd, 2019, I went to work for Ballad Health as an opioid misuse specialist. So after 10 months of working as a opioid misuse planning specialist, I was promoted to recovery program coordinator. For those who are currently suffering from substance use disorder, I would just say this, like, I know the shame, I know the pain, I know the isolation that you feel, but I want to tell you there is hope. And if one thing I hope my story can do is to open people's eyes to, you don't have to live this way. You can have something better. I am a new creation. I'm over 7 years in recovery, 2.5 years post-incarceration. God has taken my mess and turned it into a message. I'm Jason Pritchard, and this is my story.
Okay, so what I want to talk about is what really got me to the place where I am today. And I definitely would not be where I am if it was not for the collaboration between many sectors in the community. Not only, I'm a person in long-term recovery. I spent 16 years in active addiction, 9 years in recovery. I'm now 4 years post-incarceration. But had it not have been initially coming home, the support of my church family, and then from that also stemmed access to many community partners that I had met through reentry fairs while incarcerated. So I had met Linda Austin, who worked for Appalachian Substance Abuse Coalition. I had met people from Highlands Community Services, Tri-Cities Recovery, and I always recorded names and phone numbers. And so when I came home, I had some resources, Virginia Cares. I had plenty of resources that I could start with. But if it hadn't have been for the willingness of those partners to help someone who was trying to reenter society, I can't say that I would be where I am today. I think we've realized that we cannot incarcerate our way out of this problem. And so it's going to require new thoughts outside the box and people to be flexible. Does Department of Corrections have a role to play? Absolutely. They do. It's not necessarily incarceration. I think it's coming up with new alternative sentencing programs, which we have seen recovery courts really gaining a lot of momentum. The program I oversee, Peer Help, we were actually recently recognized as an alternative sentencing program for people who have committed second and third felonies or are being sentenced to greater than 12 months for a probation violation. So I think that's one big thing. Society also has a play, and society, I'm including the churches, your social service groups. They also have it can be meeting someone that's getting released and, being available to give them a ride to a probation appointment or an MAT clinic or a recovery group. It could be a church that starts a recovery program or offers their space for someone to come and set up a recovery program. Everyone and every organization can find some role to play. I'll tell you, like, I have a felony assault on a police officer. You saw that in the video. And it was actually, I was tackled and the officer got hurt in the midst of the takedown. But because I had broken the law, I was still charged for his injury as well. But now that law enforcement officer is a pastor of a church and we do ministry together. So it kind of leads to a good chuckle because I'll go in and say, I'm a convicted felon and I have assault on a police officer. And then the pastor will stand up and be like, and I'm the officer that he assaulted. And so then we really get the attention, but it just shows you like there's so much collaboration and drawing from my own personal experience. Like not only did I have, looking at it from now, I'm able to reach out and gain support from probation and law enforcement. I've shown second chance employment success. So the workforce development boards are coming to the table. Ballad Health is a healthcare organization. The probation and parole and judges just accepted a healthcare's alternative sentencing program to keep people out of prison. So it's just showing like the atmosphere in society is changing and culture is changing. And so my message today is just to, everyone can find a spot to fit in, no matter how small, or you may think you're only one person, but change starts small. Little, I was one person. I walked into an interview where I never should have got the job because at the time Ballad had a policy that they didn't necessarily hire people with felony backgrounds. But that day I had checked the box, but for some reason I still got the interview that I shouldn't have got. And later on, they pulled my application to make sure that I had checked the box, and I had. And so it just shows you one tiny stone thrown into a pond can cause a large ripple. To date, we now have 6 peer recovery specialists that work on my team with a total combined incarceration of 23 years. So we not only have a second chance employment initiative going, but it is successful. And that's my message today is just let's get together. Let's move this forward. It's time for culture. It's time for stigma. It's time for addiction. It's time for change, and the time is now.